I'm going to read it to you. It's a very long essay about Purim and about many of the interesting facts about Purim, which you may not have ever learned. And his kasha is a simple one. And he says, is there a particular place in the Megillah, whether it's a pasuk or a word, that marks the exact point of V'nafochu, the turnabout in the Purim story? So you're all going to tell me it says so in the Megillah, V'nafochu. That's not where the Nafochu occurred. That just tells us that that's what happened. But where did it precisely happen? And here we go. Through the miracle of Purim, be patient with me. It is long, but it is worthwhile, and the end makes it all worthwhile. Through the miracle of Purim, Hashem not only saved the Jewish people from Haman and their other enemies, he completely reversed the situation so that the Jews switched from being subservient to their enemies to being their overlords. What is fascinating is that the turnabout is perfectly reflected in the Megillah. Each event that appears in the first half of the Megillah, depicting the desperate situation of the Jewish people, is exactly mirrored in the opposite situation, sometimes word for word, when depicting the joy of the Yeshua in the second half of the Megillah. The trop frequently is even exactly the same. Here are a few examples that he brings down, and each one of them is worth hearing. Number one, when Achashverosh allowed or agreed to allow Haman to hatch his plot, the Megillah states, "Vayosa hamelech es tabato me'al yodo, vayitnehu leHaman, vayitna leHaman." Excuse me. Later, when Achashverosh gives Mordechai the same ring after Haman is killed, the Megillah states in almost the exact same words, "Vayosa hamelech es tabato asher hever meHaman, vayitna leMordechai." Number two, when the Megillah describes the writing and dispatch of the evil decrees in the first half, and the writing and dispatch of Mordechai's letters in the second half that counteracted the first ones, the same words are employed. You can look it up. Perigimel Perikhes. Number three, after the promulgation of Haman's decree, the Megillah describes the bewilderment of the Jews of Shushan Nebuch by saying, "Va'ir Shushan Novocha." When it describes their elation at the news of the letters that Mordechai sent, it says in opposite words, "Va'ir Shushan Sohalav Esamecha." Number four, when describing how the Jewish people throughout the empire reacted in mourning to word of the evil decree, the Megillah says, "Uv'chol Medina u'Medina, Malkom asher hamelech asher dvar hamelech v'dosa magia, Evel Gadol LaYehudim, Itzom Uvechi Umispaid, Sag Va'efer Yutza L'Rabim." Similarly, when the word of Mordechai's letters reach the same places, the Megillah states in word-for-word language, "Uv'chol Medina Medina v'chol Ir va'ir, Mekom asher dvar hamelech v'dosei magia, Simcha v'sason LaYehudim, Mishte v'yom tov, Rabim me'amei horis misyahadim, Ki nofal pachad haYehudim aleihem." A Rav named Rav Mordechai Sabato explains that since each event in the first half of the Megillah has a corresponding mirrored event in the second half of the Megillah, there must be an exact midpoint which represents the point of the turnabout of V'napochu. To that end, he notes there is no corresponding mirror event for the public honoring of Mordechai, when Haman leads Mordechai on the king's horse through the streets. Based on this, he explains that that point is when V'nafochu takes place. Expanding on this idea, it can be suggested that even within the story of the parade, we can focus it down even better, even further. The two sides of V'nafochu close in on each side when Achashverosh surprises Haman by directing him to lead Mordechai through the streets. And Haman details how he envisions the parade, thinking that he will be the honoree, The Megillah states, Yaviu levush malchus asher lovash bo hamelech, v'sus asher rochav olav hamelech, asher nitan keser malchus barosho, v'noson halavush v'hasus, ayat ish misori hamelech, hapartimim, v'helbishu as ha'ish asher hamelech chavetz bikaro, v'hirkivu al hasus b'rechov ha'ir. V'kara lefanav, kacha yes el ish asher hamelech chavetz bikaro. Correspondingly, exactly 2 psukim later, when everything has turned around, and Haman has to perform every detail for Mordechai, the Megillah states in amazingly similar language, Vayikach Haman es halavush, v'yas hasus, v'yilbash es Mordechai, v'harkiveu b'rechov ha'ir, v'yirka lefanav, kacha yeyas el ish, asher hamelech chafetz bikaro. These are both in Perek Vav, the 6th Perek. The first psukim are Ches and Tes, and the second group is from Yud Aleph. In the middle of these psukim, which is Perek Vav, Pasuk Yud, there's one pasuk. This pasuk must be the central theme of Nafal who pivots. In fact, the content of the pasuk clearly depicts the shifting of the favor from Haman to Mordechai, and it says, "Vayomer hamelech laHaman maher kach salvush v'asasos kasher dibarta." Taking a step further, it is possible to narrow down V'nafochu in this pasuk to 2 specific words. What are the central words of this pasuk? Mordechai HaYehudi. Until Mordechai's name is spoken here by the king, Haman was still on top. You can see from this that the main point of this miraculous turnabout was Mordechai HaYehudi, who did not waver an iota from his devotion to Hashem and the Torah, even in the face of Haman's threats. We learn from here that Mordechai was the one who brought about V'nafochu. As a result of the tshuva he led the Jews in performing. As fascinating as this is, the pivotal point of V'nafochu can be narrowed down even further. If Pasuk Yud is the central point of the Megillah, and if the words Mordechai HaYehudi are the central words of the Megillah, and the central words of that Pasuk, then the central point of these words is the pivotal point of V'nafochu. The central point of these words, Mordechai HaYehudi, the last letter of Mordechai, and the first letter of Yehudi, HaYehudi, spell Yud K, Hashem's name. It was Hashem himself, Echvodo V'atzmo, who was the ultimate force behind the V'nafochu. Another great example of Hashem being hidden in the Megillah in plain sight. Although the events of Purim may not have appeared obvious to the casual observer, since there are no open miracles, Hashem's name is hidden here exactly to point out it was Hashem who brought about V'nafochu. Rabbi Strickhoff, who wrote this Sefer, gives credit to Shmuel Marcus from our neighborhood here in Queens, having alerted him and brought to his attention from Rav Mordechai Sabato's Sefer called Hadassah Hi Esther. I thought this was a splendid piece of the Torah that we could all learn something from. Happy Purim.